Hello and welcome to episode 17 of the Edinburgh Northern Cockerel cast, proper Northern Men special this one. First up is a man on the end of many tries for the club over his couple of stints at the Edinburgh Park over the last decade, initially benefiting from the front football from us forwards and flick moves from the likes of Alan Aiken, Drew Chapman and Alex Laird. He only really had to trot them in. But more recently, he's been adapting a skill set to cover a scrum half and maybe not enjoying the same front football, but still managing to worm his way over the whitewash. He is the evergreen Doug Younger. Hi, Doug. How are you?
Evening, JT. Yeah, very well. Thank you. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Excellent. And partnering up with Doug for today's episode, as they do very occasionally in the back three, it's a fellow man from the north. A relatively fresh face who's only in his third season at Northern. He's made his presence felt with some great performances on the pitch. He joined the committee last year, although he really made his mark on Aidan Gallagher's shoulder. Beaming in live from Fraserburgh. Welcome, John McIntyre. How are you?
Good, thanks. Yeah, how are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you very much. So you may have watched some of these. We always ask what you've got to drink with us. So we'll go with you first, Doug. What beverage have you chosen?
So tonight, I've got a bunker favourite, the Joker IPA, and also a Ben Riach 10. So,
very nice. And yourself, John?
Well, I'm not a huge fan of what I've got, but I thought, seeing as I was only 5 miles away from Ellen, where I'm staying, I thought I'd go for a Brewdog Lost Lager.
Very good. I had that myself recently.
Very topical. And yourself, Jason?
Yeah, I've got a bunker special, a March of the Penguins.
Excellent. And I've gone for one of 4 cans of Guinness Original Dark and Lively Stout, which I must admit, having had one already, they're not very pleasant, slightly fizzy. So, yeah.
It would be one of my favourites, Michael, but maybe...
I think it's
an acquired taste.
Well, it's the 13.5% extra free. I think that maybe adds to the kind of. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan, but anyway. Onwards.
Okay, so tell us how lockdown's treating you both. John first.
Yeah, well, work's just continued for me. I work for an offshore wind developer, so we're at a pretty critical stage, just moving into construction. So just getting everything ready for that. So I was working from home right from the start of lockdown, but as Michael said in the intro, I'm now up in Fraserburgh. We're basically developing some facilities up in the harbour there, and we're a key project because we're an energy infrastructure. So I've been shipped up to Fraserburgh to look after the site works there at the harbour, only till mid-July, so not too much longer. I've made use of the fish markets while I'm up here anyway.
Well done. And Doug, working actually from home, I assume?
Yeah, I've been really fortunate that basically been able to work full time from home since the start of lockdown. So me at one end of the kitchen table, Christina at the other. It's quite cosy at times. Have to make sure we go our separate ways in the evening, but it's very, very usual now. Lots of quizzes. I can know just about every trivia question going, unfortunately, but that situation's been good. So, can't complain.
What's your specialist quiz subject then?
Probably a mix of sport and geography. I think that's probably it.
I'm trying to think very quickly of trivia questions about geography or sport. No, I can't think of anything. It'll come back to me. I'll ask you for the end, Doug.
Okay. Yeah. Just, keep thinking. Yeah, I'll get it wrong without a doubt. So
that's all right. We'll move on to the body of the interview now. So we'll start with yourself, Doug. Do you want to tell us a bit about your backstory? Where you're from. You obviously touched on work there as well. That kind of thing.
Yeah, sure. I was born in Kirkcaldy in Fife and moved up to Aberdeen at a very young age. Went to school there, came down to Edinburgh for uni, when I was 17. And I've basically been in Edinburgh since then, kind of bar 3.5 years when I went back up to Aberdeen for work. So, I mean, that's it really. I mean, I'm in, I did civil engineering at uni. I work in engineering, water industry. Nothing majorly exciting, but yeah.
And to yourself, John?
Yeah, I was from the northeast, from Elgin, and I grew up there. Went to uni in Aberdeen, did mechanical engineering. Crossed paths with Doug through work in Aberdeen, and then came to Edinburgh in 2017. Moved from the oil and gas industry into offshore wind.
John, so there you go, Michael. Like numbered 3-1 with engineers. I hope you're going to bring all the chat this evening then.
Oh, I think that's only a fair ratio when you're outnumbered 3-1 in back free players as well.
And Scots, I suppose, yeah.
Still, that's a sore point for you, Mawdsley. Yeah.
What was the back three players? Yeah, it's just not being an engineer. No, I was never good. I don't really understand it all. Basic physics was kind of beyond me, and the rest of it obviously didn't follow suit.
No, I mean a sore point in being called a back three player, but yeah.
No. I mean, yeah, formerly back three. I think I'm
right. Okay.
More after lockdown, I'm more front free at the moment. Putting about a stone, so that'll be one less player to compete. Plus, I didn't exactly go out with the best colours at the end of the season against Dalkeith, but we won't talk about
that. We may get on to that. We'll see, Michael. So rugby sort of background. Then, when did you first start, and what previous clubs did we have, lads? Doug first.
Me first. Yeah, so it's probably about age 6 that my dad took me down to my local club in Aberdeen, which was Aberdeen Grammar. So I played there really from that age, along with ex-Northerner Stu Jurassic, I suppose I should mention. I think he was there at that age as well. So I played there up to under 18. Obviously left Aberdeen at that stage. Went to university. I think I went to a couple of trials or training sessions with uni rugby. Didn't get selected, I think, for the first game or two, and basically packed it in at that stage. Didn't really know there was other rugby clubs, in existence, I suppose, apart from the kind of the big clubs you hear about in Edinburgh, Boroughmuir, Stewmel, Accies. Don't really have an appreciation of some of the more regional clubs. So I really packed rugby in for the period I was at uni. I'd like to say I concentrated on other sports, but bar like the odd game of five-a-side or intramural football wasn't really the case. Yeah, so that was through uni, and then it was probably about a year, maybe 6 months after I graduated that, through speaking to Neil Hardman, who I kind of knew through mutual friends at uni, one of which Chris Aiken, he kind of started talking about Northern, a new club that he joined, and said, "Oh, come down, blah blah blah. You know what Hardman's like." So I think that would have been about the summer of 2008. Came down for I think a few games of touch, and then that was it. That was me at Northern.
So we'll let John answer the same question then.
Yeah, so I was in quite a rugby strong family. My dad was really into it growing up, and he brought me and my brother into that quite young. So we both played for Murray Rugby Club in Elgin, right through from mini to under 18. I was fortunate enough there to play a little bit of district for the Highlanders, the Highland Islands team, and the Northern Stormers as well. Similarly to Doug, though, when I went to uni, I just didn't quite find an interest in the uni rugby after a couple of weeks, and somebody had commented on my height at the Freshers' Fair, so I went and gave rowing a shot, and rowing was basically my sport for 5 or 6 years through and after uni. Dabbled a little bit with Aberdeen Wanderers when I was working in Aberdeen, and then found my way to Northern when I came to Edinburgh a couple of years ago.
Okay, so Doug obviously touched on how he found out about that. What was your own story then?
Yeah, so my move to Edinburgh was quite a whirlwind, just because of leaving one job straight into another job, short notice period. I'd been keeping up with Doug because I'd worked with him at the previous job, and so he knew I was moving to Edinburgh and looking for a place to live. And fortunately, at that time, big friend of the podcast here, Tom Horton, was looking for a flatmate at the time. So I went and met Tom. Thought I was a shoe-in for the flat. Went really well. We got on really well. It was great. Then I didn't hear back from Tom, and then about a week later, he said, "By the way, you can move in." So that was kind of a panic over a move to Edinburgh. I was later introduced when I joined Northern. I was later introduced as the guy that Tom chose instead of McCann. So that's kind of my move to Edinburgh story. And then so knew Doug and Tom through that, and that was in December 2017. Made it down to Northern sort of pre-season last season from the beginning. That's my story into the greatest club ever.
Excellent. Well, take a wee bit of a side note. So you've obviously talked a bit about kind of you've opened rugby from quite a young age. I was much the same in Glasgow, and Jason was much the same in Londonderry. In terms of kind of rugby influences, who would you say for the two of you were the biggest influences in terms of kind of you playing rugby? You mentioned your dad there, John. Do you want to lead on that? So it can be pro players or family or whatever you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, I had to think about this question. So when I was growing up, there were lots of Scottish players were doing the rounds at like mini tournaments. So, I met people like Alan Tate and Kenny Logan at, various tournaments, which was great. It's really good as a young kid to see these Scottish players. But then the height I am now is pretty much, I pretty much grew when I was 13 and 14. So I've been this height since I was that age. So when I was playing rugby, I was always kind of the biggest in the pitch at under 16 level. So I guess my influences tended to be the big guys. So stick Scottish, people like Scott Murray, Nathan Hines around that time when I was getting into rugby. But then I guess some of the big giants of the game like Paul Connell, Victor Matfield, basically any because second row was the position I played when I was at school. So any big second row was really somebody that I looked up to, purely because I think I saw myself as that person when I was playing against all these small school guys. Excellent.
And to yourself, Doug?
Well, definitely not the big guys that I could identify with. Certainly it wasn't, not big now, it wasn't big when I was a kid. So when I first started, I suppose, getting interested in rugby, I played scrum half probably up to maybe under 15s. And that coincided with some really, really good Scottish scrum halves. Obvious one being Gary Armstrong. He was around, start of the 90s. I think as a scrum half, there weren't many better than him at the time. Great player, just such a fierce competitor. So he was a bit of an idol. Being in Aberdeen, you didn't get many local, probably rugby players reaching a high level. The closest one around then would probably have been Andy Nicol, who played at Dundee. So John kind of touched on, the odd pro showing up at tournaments. So I think Andy Nicol kind of came up to Aberdeen a few times and, presented trophies and medals and so on. So, with him doing that and also being a scrum half, he'd have been another one that you look up to as a kid. So I think probably those two from scrum halves. I mean, there is a photo of me on David Soul's knee when he did a book signing in whatever Waterstones used to be called in Aberdeen. I think that was in the early 90s as well. I've got my grandma tracksuit on, so I think again as a kid, if you get an autograph, a book signing, and a photo with the Scotland captain, then that sticks in your memory. So yeah, kind of Scotland legends that we don't really make like that anymore, basically.
For now.
For now, yeah, forever.
It's quite embarrassing actually. You talk about kind of the rugby players that you met, or you kind of grew up idolising. I think the only one that I ever met at that kind of age was Kevin Tuchuk, who was the Canada captain and prop, who appeared at my school to do scrummaging training. So we never got any, because obviously Glasgow was frowned upon and was looked down on by the SOU at that time. That was all we got. We got one kind of amateur up and in. So.
Well, I don't think Kenny Logan's ever been called a legend before, so thank you for that, John, if he watches this. So.
No, I mean, I was thinking about that, and when I was at the age when I was just starting mini rugby, kind of the late 90s, Scotland were in their absolute prime then, and so I got into rugby when Scotland were on a total high, and then just had to kind of ride it out during the 2000s, and obviously we're on an upward trend again, which is probably going to go on for forever.
We don't talk about the noughties in the podcast, John.
No,
it's like
that's what I was getting at. That's fine.
Yeah.
Well done. So Doug, we mentioned you had a couple of you're sort of on your second stint at Northern. So there's obviously something that made you come back. What would you say is Northern's unique selling point?
I mean, probably a bit linked to that. I mean, for me, personally, I think Northern's just always there as a kind of, if you're not that you should be at a loose end on a Saturday in the season, but if you were to be, you'd know there's a game on, whether you're going to be playing or whether you're going to be supporting. There'll be a warm welcome at the bunker. So it's really, for me, is that kind of no matter what. I think a few of the guys have touched on, no matter what your background is, socially in terms of rugby, if you're a beginner or you're someone that's played at a high level and you're just looking for a bit of a runaround, there's a place for you there. And it's, I think, very welcome, and yeah, you get basically all sorts down at the club, I'd say. So I think it's that kind of reassurance that you can just head down and you'll have a good time no matter what. So, and I think that's. I don't have much experience as others do about other types of club, so I can't really comment on that apart from what I've heard. But I think Northern's probably the opposite of many in that kind of with that kind of ethos.
Fair play, yeah. And John, is there something you can pinpoint as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's just the same thing as what Doug's saying, but more from a newer member point of view. I mean, you come down, and it doesn't matter whether you're in, whether you regularly play for the twos or the gents or the ones, or you just, you just come down, you're learning to play. It's everyone's. You stand by the sideline, and if you're not chatting to someone, soon you congregate and you're chatting to people, and even people going through the park. It's such a visible club in Inverleith Park, and what I quite like is we're one of few teams at the level that we play at that put out 2 teams, 3 if there's a gents team in a week, and that just shows the member base that we've got across people that have been here for 6 months and people that have been in the club for 20 plus years. It's a testament to itself, really, that sort of following, really.
Yeah, certainly punch above our sort of status in terms of player numbers, I think.
I always find it quite interesting. Obviously, the two of you knew each other from a kind of a different kind of a work situation in a different city, but both ended up at the club, and I find that once people come down, they're always there, they don't leave. And it's kind of like...
To be honest, I never really knew that Doug played rugby when we worked together. I mean, we used to talk about rugby, we talk about, sport and cycling and work and stuff, obviously, but when I moved to Edinburgh and I found out that Doug was in the club, it was
shock. I don't look like a rugby player. Really. That's it. Yeah.
Well, excellent. We'll move swiftly on. So, obviously, Doug, you've been a bit longer, but you've obviously had a few games on your belt as well. John, do you have kind of maybe a favourite game, a favourite kind of season, or tournament from your time at the club? To yourself, Doug, first.
Yeah, so I've heard a few of the guys talk about the 2008-9 season. So that was my first season at the club. I had Drew as captain. So yeah, that was just a really fun season. I think with a really good mix of players. The coaches were Ian Breakin and Kenny Telford, who, I mean, as a winger, and I was quite a bit smaller back then, I think. I wasn't really, too involved in the kind of game plan that maybe Breeks and Kenny would put together, that JT might be more suited to in some ways. But geez, they were just great coaches. They really knew how to get the most, I think, out of the players we had. Particularly, I think the forwards. JT might recall some of that. And there was a couple of games that kind of stick in the memory in that season. One in particular was a trip down to St. Boswell's. I don't know, again, JT, if you were involved. It was towards the end of the season, and I think it was pretty tight at the top of the league with us and St. Boswell's. Went down, and it's a really small pitch. It was a windy day. It was probably pissing rain as well. And it was a really tight one. And I think, again, I go to the forwards, but the kind of, the pack and the inside backs just really stepped up to the game. At one stage, I think we went down to 13 men, perhaps, and scored a try going up the hill there, just picking and going. So it wasn't a game that I had a particular big influence in, but it was a really enjoyable one. I think we won it by 2 tries to 1 or something like that. It pretty much set us up to win the league, set us up for the bus trip back to Edinburgh. So that was a great day out that season. So that was a good season. And again, I've heard other guys talk about the sevens tournaments we've played recently. I think I've been part of 2 victorious sevens teams, one in the middle, the plate, and one in the bowl. I think both times coached by Michael Smith. He was never the most maybe supportive of coaches. It was almost surprise when we were doing well. I remember we were playing, I think Trinity in maybe in a semi-final or a quarter-final, and Trinity would have at the time been 1 or 2 leagues above us in 15s and senior 15s. But I think we were 4 tries up at half time, and we came off, and there was a look of surprise in his face. Guys, I can't believe you're playing really well, guys. Keep going. Oh, cheers, Mickey. It's about the most you got out of him. So they were both. I mean, the sevens was always good fun, but to win a couple of trophies at the end of the long day was good. So they're probably the kind of the fondest sort of memories of seasons or tournaments I've got.
Right. Excellent. And yourself, John, what stands out for you in the last 3 years?
Well, I mean, I've only been with the club a few years, and everyone's kind of mentioned. So I was really fortunate to join in the last season, which a lot of people you've had on have talked about as being a good season. We didn't quite make it in the league, but we had the good performances in the cup run. The other thing that a lot of people have talked about is the rivalry of Dalkeith. Now, I get that, but then in the last 2 seasons that I've been in, there seems to have been a real kind of, to me anyway, there seems to be a real sort of rivalry with Lismore, because I think they've, as I understand it, they've kind of come from a bit of zero to hero in the last few years. So for me, those games have been pretty tight, certainly these last 2 seasons. And one in particular, which was the one just before Christmas this season, I think it was pushed back from weather. There'd been loads of weathered off training sessions. lots of people had gone home for Christmas. They were sitting undefeated at the top of the league, and I think we had a quite, let's say a moderate team out. It definitely wasn't a full strength team, and we all went there. It was happy to be Christmas, and we came away with a really, really solid win, despite super scrappy game. But so the Lismore games have kind of been, that game kind of summed that up. It was great. I don't think we lost one game to Lismore last season, but I think that was the only one. And I know for me that's kind of the rivalry that I've got. I had a couple of other memories of games, but they kind of stick with me for the wrong reasons. One of my first games that I played, so I hadn't played rugby for 5 or 6 years, joined Northern, and pretty much the first game I was thrown into was a sort of friendly tens game against Dunbar, which was 2 summers ago. And they basically turned up with these, I don't know what league Dunbar are in. I was new to it. I was just kind of getting back into rugby, and half of their team were just, gym guys roided up to sort of 20 stone, and I think they were playing 13 or 14 people against the 10 that we'd brought, and they had substitutes. We had people on the floor. We ended up playing something like 10 minutes, and I don't know, it was just a total injury fest for us, and everyone got smashed. And then I remember another time getting smashed was I got pretty much knocked out against the Dick Vets. They turned up with some, I want to say Pacific Islanders. I don't know if they were vets. I doubt it. They certainly smashed us about the park a little bit. And then there was a big hit in that Lismore game before Christmas. Basically, Gollum he went to throw one of his dummies. He didn't dummy it. It came to me, and I got the hospital pass and just totally got upended into touch. So somewhat oddly, the games that I remember are the ones where I perhaps shouldn't remember for almost being knocked out. But yeah, good memories. I'm saying with a smile on my face anyway. So
it's always good to be self-critical. I feel that Lismore game is the one I remember distinctly because I just got battered for 80 minutes by their, as Doug sniggers to himself, the most great. Physical. He was playing 8, 7, and 6 all simultaneously. But it was that was I have quite enjoyed the recent rivalry with Lismore. I think they kind of, it means more to them than us.
I think that's what it is. Yeah.
So they've started stealing our ideas as well. They're now doing their own kind of podcasty thing called the Clubhouse.
I did not know about this, Michael.
Yeah, I didn't share it because I thought you'd get angry. They're doing something similar, but it's good to have rivals. I think because it makes for a much more interesting league. I think personally. We'll move on away from my Lismore bashing. So we're all back 3 players really, apart from Jason, although he has played in his past. So one of the best things about playing the back 3 is getting to score tries. So to both of you, do you have any tries of your own or others that maybe stand out from your time at Northern? To Doug first.
I was thinking about this. I've got a really bad memory for some of my own tries and also some of the older tries. There's one a bit more recently that really sticks in my mind. It was a game down in Dalkeith, and it would have been towards the start of last season's 2018-19, and I think Dalkeith were undefeated and top of the league at that stage. We turned up down there, and they were expecting probably to roll us over. And I just remember that first half, we really turned up and did a bit of a number on them, to be honest. We're 4 or 5 tries up, I think, at half time. And there was just one try in that game, and it was a set piece off a scrum in their 22. I won't bore you with the name of the move, but there was, it's one where centres kind of switch over and the fullback comes in on a delayed line. Fullback that day was Wilson. So he got the pass off whoever the 10 was, and he just ghosted in between the centres, past the fullback and under the posts. And I've never seen really many Northern set piece moves come off that successfully before. And especially against what was, a good opponent top of the league. So that's, I mean, maybe a bit of recency bias, but that's certainly one that I think that was a good backs try, and it shows that practicing these moves in this small space we've got on Tuesday and Thursday night sometimes does pay off.
Can you imagine how dangerous it would be if we had a bigger space to train the backs in?
We've trained in bigger spaces and it doesn't help. So we used to training football pitches under floodlights, and it still didn't make a difference. So.
That's true. John, what about yourself? Have you got any tries that stand out, or other people's tries that you've enjoyed?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to mention the game that Doug. I think the game Doug's talking about as well, because at 30 years old, I think I was the youngest person in the back line that day. And something that was great about that game was that I think the average age of the back line was something like 35 or 34 or something like that. And most of the tries came from the back line. As a playing on the wing, I'm not really the prolific try scorer that a lot of other Northern wings have been in the past. Most of my tries have actually come in the friendlies that we played rather than league matches. But I think the one of my own tries that stands out is probably, it was the last game of the season last year against Dalkeith. It was a game it was going to decide who finished second in the table. We didn't quite, we beat them, but not quite by enough points. And it was also, I think I scored a try that day, and it was also the day of the players' dinner. So just the atmosphere around it was great. So I felt pretty good about it as well. So that's the one that stands out.
Sorry, Mike.
Oh, no, I was just say that I remember that game quite distinctly. I thought you were talking about this season. No, that game at the end of last season was. I remember that being a particularly intense, technical game of rugby to watch, because obviously I was injured at that point. No, was that the game I got injured in? I can't remember. Was it the one at Inverleith Park?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a ridiculously technical game of rugby to watch. It was very, very impressive. That was a great game to watch. So that was my added comment. Sorry.
So Doug, you'll have played with a good few guys in the back three, and certainly that league win campaign we touched on. Do you want to give us then sort of your favourite Northern wingers and fullbacks?
Yeah, sure. I was racking my brains trying to remember them all, so I will definitely have forgotten a few good players. So fullback, I think my first season would have been, so Jamie Hackett would have been playing fullback then, and he didn't play too much longer after that. He moved away, but he was a really, really effective, effective at hitting good lines, good straight lines, and making breaks. He's got a lot of tries that season. I really enjoyed playing outside Chris Aiken, someone that he wasn't selfish as a fullback. I mean, first of all, he's rock solid in defence, but he didn't go it alone too many times. He'd quite often, make a wee break and then give the pass. He's a really good passer. On a similar note, Alex Laird as well. Sometimes he'd drop into fullback. So, yeah, they were really good to play with. As a winger, being on the receiving end, some pretty easy tries, to be honest, off of them. In terms of wingers, so again in my first season, I think Luke Lewis was probably my kind of teammate on the other wing, and probably quite a different winger to me, but he was a really solid player and really got stuck in. So that was a good kind of me, Hackett, Luke trio, I thought. Liam Barry, I think, was when he came down, he was really good, a really big, strong guy, to be honest. Very hard to tackle and a lot of pace. So yeah, Luke, Liam, Chris Gove as well for the couple of years he was down. I think quite a versatile player, good boot, and kind of knew how to play rugby. Not too flashy, but pretty decent shifting. So they're the kind of from my first stint. More recently, I won't include. Sorry, Jason, I'm not including you as a winger.
I I was going to say, it's neither me nor Jurassic for those couple of seasons we were there.
Yeah, I don't think you want to talk about that, do you? That season. No, you have my sympathy. And some of you, Mike, I don't think you're a winger, despite what some people have said, including I think our most recent captain. So I don't think that's your best position. But yeah, recently, John's great fun to play with. Big, strong guy, makes up for my lack of any kind of bulking strength on the other wing to play wing. I think the wings we've got now, Jamie Thompson's probably one that springs to mind as the kind of most effective. He seems to be in a bit of a run for scoring tries. And then when he's playing, when he's turning up, Aidan, I think is a really good fullback, if a little ill-disciplined, maybe, where he ends up on the pitch. But he's obviously a good, strong runner.
Well done. So no doubt you'll have touched on a few of John's.
Obviously, I don't have as big an army to select from, but I mean, yeah, wing combinations, you don't really see much of each other during a game. So I mean, my kind of influential players I'm thinking about are really the fullback. So I think both Doug and Wilson are, top guys to play with, mainly because of the communication, I think, is great. Both of them are really loud. You know where they are. They're organising your defence and certainly telling you where to be if you're not in the right place. And you often have that battle between someone like you, Mawdsley, if you're at 10 telling me to be in one place and then Doug's at 15 telling me to be somewhere else. So yeah, both Wilson and Doug I like playing with it when they're at fullback. Somebody that hasn't got a mention, I think, in any other podcast, Crawford. So he basically was kind of the sort of stalwart wing for me in my first game. So my first few games, it was the two of us were kind of lining up on each side. And I mean, yeah, I made some ground, did my bit in defence, wasn't really scoring tries, but Crawford kind of made up for the sort of the headlines on the wing department because he scored tries, but he also dropped the ball loads as well. So it took the attention away from all the good and the bad things that I was doing, which is quite nice. So yeah, it's good. I think when I was thinking about this question, I think the lineup we've got in not just the back three, but the backs at the moment, we've got quite a lot of interchangeable guys. And the way that Chris has trained us is, most people can switch in and out of different positions. And I wouldn't really say that in the last two seasons there are people that are necessarily stuck in a certain position over others. So that's good because it encourages you to come to training and put a bit more effort in and stuff as well. So it's quite a good place to be in, really, when we've got 8, 9, 10 guys that you can really swap in and out of all the sort of positions from 12 to 15.
I'd definitely echo that. I think that there's quite a common theme for thinking that wingers just score tries and are there to catch the ball and run. But I think with our back three and everyone who plays in the back three, a lot of us, well, a lot of you and across the back line in general are very quite versatile. I think it's always been Chris's opinion, or other coaches as well, that any player in the back line should be able to play in one position or a couple of positions and be able to offer that passing option in behind an attacking line and all that, a kicking option in defence as well. So I think that's definitely shown out in the last couple of years as well for me, watching you guys do your stuff from either the sideline or closer in. So we haven't actually talked about this at all, but the social side of Northern is obviously a massive part of the club. So to yourself first again, Doug, do you have a kind of favourite Northern night out or an event you've been to, or perhaps a couple of tours that you've been on during your time?
Yep, absolutely. A couple of tours that were great. I mean, the one is the one that I always think was great was Budapest, which I don't know. We must have had about 40 guys in there, including some of the guys that weren't playing at the time. They were certainly some of the older gents, and that was just great fun. That was Yeah, a real mix from kind of new guys in the club to, as I said, some of the older ones. So that was a great tour. The Dutch tour, the hastily arranged Dutch tour the year before, I think we were due to go to Zadar in Croatia. And whoever it was pulled the flights, Ryanair, someone like that, with just a couple of months. So Mickey kindly arranged, probably with some kickbacks, a last-minute tour to Rotterdam and The Hague. So that was good fun. One of my kind of favourite memories of that one is tour captain Stu Jurassic, only lasting about a day and a half of captaincy before he was stripped of it for falling asleep in a bowl of pasta at about 4 o'clock. So that was good fun. I think I was a virgin with Sam Shelley on that tour, and it's probably the only tour I've known of that the virgins got off more lightly than the other new tourists who weren't official virgins. There's one moment in I think it was Queen's Day, the Friday there, and there was quite a few of the guys on display in one of the main kind of squares in Rotterdam that was being Sam managed to avoid. That was good. And the other one's probably the first players' dinner we had, because I think when it came round, we'd had a couple of the kind of proper dinners, and we decided that we needed a players' dinner to have a bit of a different vibe. And I remember that just being a really fun day. I think we had a barbecue and a good kind of award ceremony, and just a kind of old-fashioned, good fun event at the bunker, without the kind of formality of some other events. That way.
Excellent. And to yourself, John, I don't know if you've been on tour yet.
No.
So
I haven't.
Focus on nights out then.
Well, I wasn't going to mention a tour because I've been on one, but I was going to mention a touring side, which was the Sue Box that came last summer. It was a French team, and what I remember from that was that I'm sure it was Dom that was bigging this team up as being this essentially a gents team. They played social rugby. They weren't very good, and it was just going to be a bit of fun. We would just throw a load of points past them and have a beer with them afterwards. And that was kind of the build-up for weeks. And then they turned up, and I mean, they pretty much just pulled our pants down. And they were everything from a couple of grey-haired, crusty guys right down to students, really athletic guys. And it was just nobody was expecting it, and it was a good fun game. But yeah, that's my experience of a touring side, which was quite good. So yeah, nights out. I mean, Burns nights, had I mentioned, it's quite. I like Burns because you bring the better halves along, and there's a good vibe. Players' dinner is obviously pretty good as well. I didn't make it to the virtual one this year, but last year was Simon Bergen. I think a good time was had by all at that one. There's lots of, let's say, outtakes, videos of shenanigans that night. So that was pretty good. One night, I think it was the first league game of my first season. It was pretty early on in my Northern. When I joined Northern, I don't remember what game it was. I don't really remember what happened at the bunker, but I ended up. This was my introduction to the Pakora bar in the middle of Edinburgh. So I was there with Tom Horn and Holland and Gollum. This was like the new thing for me. I'd never been to it. It was great. And the four of us ended up in Garibaldi's at, I think, probably 10:30. But made a pact that it was going to get good, and it's always going to get good, and it's going to get good. And then I'm pretty sure the four of us just all had 4 individual nights out. Like, I don't really remember seeing anyone. I don't know. None of the 4 of us knew what happened to each other or really what happened to ourselves. So, and I think that's fairly classic. Everyone's mentioned Garibaldi's, and that's my spin on it, basically.
Fantastic.
So we've got a good few listener questions, if you don't mind entertaining us. Michael can lead us through.
It'll be my pleasure. So yeah, you're both relatively popular on the listener questions. So the first one is for you, John. It's from @marked by McIntyre. Suarez or Tyson, who's your biting idol?
Well, I think I've probably made my own name as a biter, haven't I? So I can maybe take that one on.
Just for people who maybe don't know that story, do you want to tell us about it?
Well, I mean, I could claim that I was concussed, but that was very much determined not to be the case at the time. The lights were fading. I don't know. I had my gum shield in my pocket, right? So let's start the story with that one. We were doing unopposed team run at the end of a Thursday night before a game. I think it was Gala or something. And there was a bit of friendly fire. The ball was kicked over my head at the start off. I turned round to run to chase after it, caught the ball on the bounce and turned to set it up or run forward. And then out of nowhere, literally, a shoulder connected with my face. And that was Aidan. So sorry, Aidan, for your shoulder. I believe you had to get 3 stitches. But two halves of my front 2 teeth are somewhere in Relief Park. So yeah, sorry
Excellent.
about that.
And this one for Doug from @frustrated10. Can you stop sniping when playing 9, please?
Okay, if the 10 can get in position, then it'd be my pleasure. But yeah, unfortunately, I just have that habit of thinking a gap maybe looks bigger, or maybe I've got more pace than I do now. Maybe thinking I've got pace of 10 years ago, and just thinking I can make it. But yeah, I'll take that feedback on board for when we get back to playing, and if I'm selected again at 9. So.
Well done. So for both of you, this one from @tour. Can we organise a mini tour up north?
Yes, I think. Well, we obviously played Aberdeenshire a couple of seasons ago, so maybe we wouldn't propose to play them on tour. There's quite a few. I mean, we've got Mr. Kindness, who's Mackie, Stonehaven.
Yeah.
Who I think would probably be quite a good matchup. And he touched on Wanderers there, John.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think. Would it mean we have to have a night out in Aberdeen? Is that? Would maybe be best getting the train back to Edinburgh, I think, or Glasgow.
That was going to be my follow-up question. I've only ever been for one night out in Aberdeen. Would you recommend it?
Probably not now. I don't know if there's anyone there anymore.
No, I mean, as a student, it was pretty good 10 years ago, but I don't think there's anything there anymore.
Yeah, there's some decent pubs, and honestly, someone like Mackie would be quite good, I think. And Stonehaven's got some quite nice pubs, and then you could jump on a train back down or a bus back down to some civilization.
Yeah, I mean, if we're desperate, Murray, I think probably a similar standard. There is a nightclub in Elgin, so I'd probably welcome the patronage of some northern gentlemen at some point.
Excellent. We should put it forward to tour committee then. Excellent. The next question is for you, John, and comes from @Giacomo Man. What's been your favourite season of Love Island and why?
Tom, I don't know who liked Love Island more. Well, I think we both watched it. We both loved the memes. The memes were certainly the best bit about it, I think. You kind of get into a state. I mean, I won't name drop anybody else, but as soon as Love Island's mentioned on a Tuesday or Thursday night, there's about 5 seconds of silence before that one brave person makes a comment about last night's episode, and suddenly everyone in the changing room has an opinion and has watched it. So I don't really want to be bundled into the corner as the Love Island guy, or with Tom with that one. But I don't know. I mean, I hated the one that was at winter, if that's going to answer the question. The one that's just been in January, that wasn't very good.
So this one for Doug then, from @DutchMum. Less of a question, but more just a statement of fact. My daughter is still scarred from your naked jog with Sam Shelley around the Rotterdam docks on Tuesday.
Yeah, that was the virgin punishment we had, and it wasn't naked. It was, I think we had tops, still our tour tops on, and trust me, I would rather have done that than what the non-official virgins had to do shortly after. So yeah, I apologise to our Dutch friend for that.
Didn't you? There was a bit that you couldn't quite get back to where we were, so you ended up going quite residential, didn't you?
It was basically a harbour. So can you imagine like trying to run around a harbour and there not being any bridges to get back over to where you want to go, and it just kept going and going and going. Luckily it was Sam with me, so we could, I didn't have anyone sprinting ahead. But it was that was fun. Yeah.
Excellent. And Jason, actually, I think you should ask the last question because I'm biased on it. So.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. So from @softhands, for both of you, would you rather play outside a crash ball centre and never receive a pass, or play outside a hospital or intercept passes from Michael Mawdsley? John?
Well, I mean, I mentioned earlier in the chat about hostile passes, having received them, because quite often that can be the case with our passing. But I mean, I'm gonna be a bit left field here and give Mawdsley his due here, because actually he's been quite good at trying to include the wings a bit more, and sometimes on a loop ball we'll throw the miss or the double or the triple miss to try and hit the wing. And actually I've benefited from that a few times, so I'm going to bounce that question back a little bit with that response. So I mean, and sometimes the miss pass is the only time, whether it's intercepted or not, sometimes the miss pass is the only time that the wings get the ball. So I think that's going to be my answer.
And Doug, are you willing to be hospitalised, or?
No, but having been part of many seasons of Northern game plans which don't involve any play outside of 12, I'll never criticise someone for trying to throw something a bit speculative. I just think, why not? It maybe pays off some of the time, but it beats, standing on the wing or at fullback, shivering and not touching the ball for 80 minutes. So absolutely play with as many people that want to throw hospital passes as possible. And sometimes they work the best because it kind of confuses defenders, I think, and because they get to you before you've caught the ball and they don't really know what to do, and you catch it and you can wriggle away. So it can work pretty well as well.
I think that's a green light to keep throwing them, Michael, then.
Yep, you've got permission.
Yeah, presuming next year's captain and coach ever let me play in that position again. But it's better to have lived knowing than died not knowing. So the final question now to both of you: what are you most looking forward to doing when life returns to normal? For Doug first.
I mean, bar the usual, see family, etc. Probably just honestly a game of touch down at the bunker. It's probably about the most realistic kind of team sport or leisure activity we'll be able to do. So hopefully that's not too far away. Maybe a few weeks, couple of months. But that's probably genuinely one of them. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't really have a non-cliche answer to that either. I mean, we're fortunate that lockdown has pretty much covered the off-season of rugby, so getting back to training in the summer months would be nice. And yeah, just getting back to a sense of normality. I mean, I hate my kitchen workstation, so going back to the office to work could be nice, I guess. And getting out to restaurants and bars and things again would be good.
All right. Well done, thank you. So if you thought we couldn't go any further north, next time on the Cockerel cast, we are chatting to a Shetlander and very keen tourist, champion of the world, Danny Farnworth. So join us for those stories. For now, though, I'm Jason Thompson. He's Michael Mawdsley, and thank you to Doug and John for joining us. Stay safe, and we look forward to a good knees up down the bunker before long. Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yeah. Cheers.